Have you ever been in a conversation where you just knew you were right, yet somehow the other person refused to agree? You laid out the facts clearly, explained your reasoning logically, but still, they shut you down. It's frustrating. You might have thought, if only they'd listen, everything would be different. But here's the truth that most people don't realize. Being right is rarely enough to change minds. The real power lies not in facts or logic alone, but in the invisible science behind how our brains decide what to believe. Persuasion isn't magic. It isn't manipulation or trickery. It's a process, a formula that anyone can learn and apply, once they understand the hidden mechanisms that drive human decision-making. At its core, persuasion is about connection. It's about speaking to the part of the brain that governs emotions, trust, and familiarity long before the rational mind weighs in. This means that even the smartest argument can fall flat if it doesn't engage these deeper layers. Neuroscience has revealed that our brains are wired to prioritize emotional signals over logical reasoning when making choices. Antonio Damasio, a renowned neuroscientist, studied patients who had lost the ability to feel emotions due to brain damage. Despite retaining normal cognitive abilities, these patients were unable to make even the simplest decisions. Without emotion, facts become meaningless. This groundbreaking discovery highlights the crucial role emotions play in persuasion. Before words even come into play, people's brains are evaluating countless subconscious signals, body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, and even subtle cues like eye contact or posture. These nonverbal factors can establish trust or raise barriers within seconds. In fact, studies show that when meeting someone for the first time, the brain forms an impression in less than 7 seconds, with over 90% of that judgment based on nonverbal communication. Trust is the invisible currency of persuasion. If the person you're speaking to doesn't trust you, your words don't stand a chance. That's why the most effective persuaders are those who project authenticity and openness naturally. They understand that persuasion isn't about pushing a message aggressively, but about creating a safe, receptive environment for that message to take root. One fascinating experiment done by psychologist Albert Mehrabian showed that only 7% of communication is based on the words we say. A staggering 38% comes from tone of voice, and an overwhelming 55% comes from body language. This means that the way you say something matters far more than the actual content when it comes to persuasion. Once trust is established, the next essential element is emotion. Humans are storytelling creatures. We are wired to respond to narratives that trigger feelings, hope, fear, joy, or empathy, because these emotional experiences help us make sense of the world. In fact, research from Stanford University found that stories are remembered up to 22 times more than isolated facts. This is because stories activate multiple brain regions involved in language, emotion, memory, and even motor functions, making them incredibly powerful tools for influence. When you want to persuade, facts alone won't move people. You need to wrap your message in stories that resonate deeply. Instead of saying, "This product saves 20% on energy," say, "Last winter, my heating bill nearly broke me. That's when I realized there had to be a better way, so I created this solution." Which version would move you more? The answer is obvious. The story connects emotionally and creates a bond. There is a powerful psychological principle known as the peak-end rule, discovered by psychologist Daniel Kahneman. According to this principle, people judge an experience mostly based on how they felt at its peak, the most intense point, and at its end, rather than the total sum or average of every moment. Applying this to persuasion, it means your message should have an emotionally compelling climax and a strong, positive ending to be memorable and influential. The final piece of the formula is repetition. Familiarity breeds acceptance. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect. The more often we hear something, the more likely we are to believe it, even if the information is new or unfamiliar at first. This explains why political slogans, advertising jingles, and repeated messaging across platforms are so effective. Repetition cements ideas into memory and builds trust over time. However, repetition isn't about annoying people with the same message endlessly. Effective persuasion involves subtle, varied repetition, different ways of expressing the same core idea, spread across multiple interactions. This strategy allows the message to seep into the subconscious, planting seeds that gradually grow into belief and action. Most people fail at persuasion because they focus solely on logic and facts, ignoring the critical roles of trust, emotion, and repetition. They assume people are rational beings who will be convinced by data alone. But human beings are far more complex. We are emotional, social, and deeply influenced by context. To apply this formula in real life, start by building trust. Show up consistently with authenticity. Use open body language and genuine eye contact. Be reliable and calm, and people will begin to lower their defenses. Next, connect emotionally. Share stories that reflect your message. Use metaphors and examples that evoke feelings and relate to your audience's experiences. Remember, facts inform, but feelings transform. Finally, repeat your core message thoughtfully. Don't hammer it relentlessly. Instead, weave it into different conversations, emails, and moments. Over time, your idea becomes familiar, safe, and believable. For example, if you want to ask for a raise, don't just say, "I deserve more money." Instead, weeks before, demonstrate your value quietly through your work and attitude. Share a story about how you contributed to a successful project. Casually mention your commitment during meetings. Drop subtle reminders in conversations. When the time comes to make your request. The decision maker has already accepted it subconsciously. Remember, the most effective persuaders don't yell or demand. They listen, empathize, and guide gently. Their influence is quiet, but powerful, earned through patience and understanding. Another important concept is the consistency principle, introduced by psychologist Robert Cialdini. People have a deep desire to be consistent with what they have previously said or done. If you can get someone to commit, even in a small way, they are much more likely to agree to bigger requests later. This is why asking for small yeses early in the conversation builds momentum. Persuasion also hinges on social proof. Humans are social creatures, and we tend to look to others to decide what is correct behavior or belief. This is why testimonials, user reviews, or stories about how many people have benefited from something greatly enhance your persuasive power. Demonstrating that others have already accepted your message removes doubts and creates a bandwagon effect. It's critical to remember that persuasion is not about manipulation or deception. Ethical persuasion is about genuine influence, helping others see benefits that they might have overlooked. It respects autonomy and invites cooperation. Persuasion is a lifelong skill that improves with practice and reflection. Some of the greatest leaders, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Steve Jobs, mastered these principles intuitively. They built trust, connected emotionally, used stories with powerful endings, repeated their core message masterfully, leveraged social proof, and sought consistency in their audience's beliefs and actions. The scientific formula of persuasion is accessible to everyone. By understanding the neurological and psychological underpinnings of how decisions are made, you can influence others more effectively, not by overpowering them, but by guiding them gently towards choices that benefit everyone involved. So next time you want to convince someone, remember this formula. Build trust first. Engage the heart with stories. Repeat your message subtly over time, and provide social proof and opportunities for small commitments. When applied consistently and ethically, this approach will transform your ability to influence and connect deeply with others. Persuasion is not about winning arguments. It's about creating understanding. It's not about forcing decisions. It's about inspiring action. And it's not a mysterious talent. It's a science that anyone can master.